The Colorado Street Bridge is a historic and beautiful work of art that draws dejected people to its ledges in their most desperate final moments. Pasadena is a quaint city in Los Angeles, chock full of adorable turn-of-the-last-century craftsman homes. Nestled in the San Fernando Valley, Pasadena is home to the Rose Parade, Rose Bowl, and one famous little old lady. Spanish explorers to the area in the 18th century called the Tongva indigenous population Gabrielinos, and they called the land Rancho San Pascual. When the city was incorporated on January 31, 1874, it took the name Pasadena, the Ojibwe word for the valley. Pasadena's founders set out to build a community for folks who valued honesty, innovation, and sobriety. In this sense, Pasadena hasn't changed much. Its residents, for the most part, are upright and goodly. However, one blight on Pasadena's beautiful landscape threatens the city's legacy. Pasadena has a suicide bridge. The historic Colorado Street Bridge was built in 1913 and crosses a seasonal creek bed called the Arroyo Seco. The 150-foot-tall bridge provides east and west access by foot or automobile in 9 majestic cement arches made from native gravel. When it was built, the bridge set a record as the highest cement bridge in the world. Colorado Street Bridge was once part of Route 66 and now runs alongside the 134 as part of Colorado Boulevard. Before the bridge, and before Pasadena existed, indigenous people lived and died all along the Arroyo Seco banks. Just a few miles north, the river is dammed at Devil's Gate. It is called Devil's Gate because of the sinister rock outcroppings that strike an uncanny similarity to other depictions of Satan. To the Gabrielinos, the land and water held important significance in their mythology. The babbling of the arroyo against the canyon wall created an effect that sounded a whole lot like laughter. The Tongva people attributed this to the sky coyote, a deity devoted to trickery and deception. In their estimation, the Arroyo Seco belonged to him. Occultists believed Devil's Gate was one of 7 portals to hell. Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, and L. Ron Hubbard performed rituals there, hoping to open the portal and usher in the Antichrist. Construction workers and archaeologists have unearthed evidence of Tongva inhabitants to include ancient burial sites throughout the decades. The first bridge built over the Arroyo Seco was called the Scoville Bridge. It was a footpath only, but Mother Nature knocked it out in 1914 when torrential downpour washed the bridge away. The city began construction on the new bridge right away. On August 1, 1913, as workers stood on top of the half-finished bridge, rumbling from motorized equipment caused the scaffolding to crumble. Most of the workers ran to safety, but 3 fell to the ground. Rumor holds that one of the workers fell to his death into wet cement. As they say, the cement's weight made it impossible to pull him out, and he remains entombed in the bridge. This story is not entirely true. Charles Johnson did fall into wet cement. He was severely injured and lost his right arm and leg in the accident, but he survived. Mr. H. Collins suffered some bruising but recovered completely. John Visco was not as fortunate. He died almost instantly in the creek bed. Despite the horrible accident, construction resumed, and the bridge was completed. No one could predict that the Great Depression was right around the corner and would bring the first few dozen suicides with it. The first suicide on the Colorado Street Bridge occurred on November 16, 1919. 70-year-old Huntington Park resident, Smith Osgood, traveled to the bridge intent on ending his life. As he walked through the lamp-lit pathway, he stopped a passerby and paid him to bring a note to the police station and instructed him not to read it. When Mr. Osgood reached one of the many small alcoves at a high point on the bridge, he climbed onto the ledge and jumped to his death. The police and coroner opened the note and came right away. Mr. Osgood wrote, "Please telephone at once G.G. Wheat, undertaker, Huntington Park, to send for my body and prepare for its cremation. I am about to make the leap from your beautiful Colorado Street Bridge. Farewell, beautiful Pasadena. I loved you so well." During the Great Depression, Colorado Street Bridge saw a surge of suicides. Over 50 men and women took the fatal leap between 1929 and 1933. Perhaps they were drawn by the Sky Coyote's trickery, or maybe they read the details of Mr. Osgood's death in the papers. No one knows why so many sojourned to that particular bridge for their final act, but by 1933, the bridge earned the somber sobriquet, the Suicide Bridge. With headlines of suicides, stories of ghostly activity were sure to follow. Locals and visitors report seeing the apparition of a woman in a white gossamer gown leaping from a parapet but vanishing mid-air. People walking on and even below the bridge hear the unmistakable sound of a baby's cry. Among the trees and rocks below the bridge, people report the gruff voice of a man insisting, "It's her fault." Are such stories to be believed? There are no reports of children dying on the bridge. Though, as previously stated, the area was home to generations of natives who kept no written records. As for our records, there are two possible contenders for these reports of paranormal activity. The most popular being the story of Myrtle Ward. On May 1, 1937, Myrtle dressed her 3-year-old daughter and drove her to the bridge. When they reached the alcove at the highest point, she paused long enough to make eye contact with a few pedestrians who watched in horror as Myrtle flung her baby from over the side, just before she jumped into the rocky creek bed. Fortunately, pepper trees below broke the baby's fall. She was injured, to be sure, but she lived. She credits her survival to angelic intervention. Sadly, Myrtle was not so fortunate. Myrtle died a painful death 2 hours later at a local hospital. The fall shattered her pelvis and ruptured her spleen, according to her death certificate. Before she jumped, she pinned the following note to her dress. Myrtle's mother-in-law told reporters that Myrtle hadn't been well since her daughter's difficult, breech birth. Myrtle's husband was a musician named Clarence. Just before Myrtle's death, he found a job through the Works Progress Administration, and Myrtle thought he deserved a better paying gig to support the family. His new employment meant she had to quit her job to stay home and care for the baby. In her broken mind, Myrtle catastrophized the situation. His job was just temporary. Her suicide was permanent. What about the man with the gravelly voice? With 150 suicides to the bridge's credit, it should be challenging to figure out which soul lingers and blames a woman for his actions. It is not. On August 25, 1934, Charles Winkleman took a car ride with his recently estranged wife, Ella. During the drive, he turned onto the Colorado Street Bridge and stopped about halfway across. He exited the vehicle abruptly and attempted to drag his wife out with him. Ella fought, and she fought hard as Charles struggled to pull her to the ledge. "You're coming with me," he yelled. Thankfully, Ella was able to break free. When she did, Charles went over the bridge into eternity. Police found this note in his pocket. It is true, 150 lives ended below this bridge, more than 50 during the Great Depression, and 30 since 2010. The pain inherited by friends and family of the victims is evident in the mementos they leave. Padlocks, locked without a key, hang from the 10-foot chain-link suicide barrier and serve as grim reminders of lives ended too soon. These locks speak to the finality of suicide. They also remind us that people care and continue to grieve for 150 souls who saw no other way. The victims leave other, more impactful reminders that Colorado Street Bridge is, indeed, a suicide magnet. When a person climbs the barrier, their shoes tend to become stuck and fall off. Most of the time, they land in the tiny nooks along the bridge. As stated, the city has put up a barrier. They struggle with preserving the beauty of the bridge and keeping people safe. Fewer people have jumped from the bridge since the barrier was erected, but the more persistent find a way. The city has also placed signs on either side of the bridge instructing anyone who needs help to call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Unfortunately, there are no payphones. The locks are haunting. They represent a thing that can't be undone. Some bear handwritten phrases such as, "I miss you, Benny," and remind us the bridge is not a playground for paranormal investigators. Nor should it be a debate over preserving history or preserving lives. It is a hallowed place where people have died, and their loved ones come to remember them. These were people with names, mothers, and friends who will never be okay. Whatever the problem may be, choosing to end your life is no resolution. You were put here for some mysterious, beautiful reason that you may never learn. You are here to tell a story of surviving, even when you didn't want to. You are here, and the world is better for it. Please stay. If you need help, click here for the Suicide Prevention Lifeline.